Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey,
Morning.
Boy, we got two special guests today. Two fellow colleagues and counselors, Devlin and Mr. Brent Wachs. Thanks for joining us.
hey you guys, thanks for coming today.
So kind of today's topic, I think we're going to talk about a little bit more maybe philosophical, or I don't know what the word is, but I think in our training as counselors, we do a lot of training in how do we respond to crisis events, right? And just in our years of experience in dealing with some really horrible things, we sort of look at this situation we are certainly in with the COVID as also a crisis, right? It's really sort of a trauma response. And typically when we begin that process of responding, it's about stabilizing the community, right? It's about stabilizing those feelings, stabilizing kind of just bringing people back and just like stabilizing. It's like if you have a heart attack, you go into the hospital, the first thing they have to do is stabilize you. Once the community is stabilized, then you look at going through some of the next stages, right? And I think that's kind of where we are right now. We things are sort of stabilized, I think, and we're sort of looking at opening, but we're still in that process of responding. Things are not over and done with, right?
Well, and I also think, Jason, if you kind of carry on with that medical theme, right, that we look at this as an ongoing illness and that each member, like whoever's impacted, are going to respond differently. Like there's kind of no one response, this, I think we have to be very cognizant of that as well too in our responses.
Yeah, so even the fact that, we, in our role as educators, teachers really responded and begin to roll out their online platforms. And now kind of things are kind of in place, but it doesn't mean that things are perfect and that things are not going to have to continually evolve, right?
No, and I think because this situation is quite fluid and ever changing and unpredictable, like we have to be able to be flexible and realize that, we have to be, I guess, really aware of what's happening in the moment and then recalibrate as needed, because I think this could change again, right? Yes, there's a plan in the province to have some gradual reopening, but we may end up kind of taking two steps back too. I think we have to really just be flexible and aware that this is always changing, and so we may have to change again too. So it's the unpredictability of it that I think is really challenging and unsettling.
So as we kind of sort of move back to what people call a new normal, right? Not sure if I like that terminology, but what are some things that you think we should be considering?
Well, I think one of the main things is, and again, this is in any trauma response, is, and I hate to overuse this, but it's that model calmness, right? Like how do we make sure that we're supporting each other as responders? And I think that's important. And also realize that we are also part of this and that we are impacted by this as well too.
Yeah.
It's like with what's different again with other trauma responses is we're not as immersed in it, but we are so impacted by this as well too. And I think we need to give ourselves permission to feel that as well too, to talk to each other, to support each other, to talk to our supports, and realize that we're going to be impacted as well. And then how do we recover so that we can be good responders, with that as well too.
And I think realizing that everybody is going through this from a different impact perspective, I guess too, right? People are impacted differently. People's responses to things are different. And so I think it's an awareness, like a self-awareness, like you're talking about, but then also, being aware that everybody's response is going to be different depending on how they're impacted. And that can change as well, right? Like it's a very fluid situation all around.
I think that's
Brent, I was just going to say, I think about some of the work that we did and that you did around our CIT, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think about what Marty's saying, this being, everyone's experience is going to be different. And you know, I've caught my own self getting frustrated sometimes internally, you know, when I think, well, they should know this, or they should, and they don't, because that's my experience is different from someone else's, and just being open and aware that it's going to look different for different people. And part of that for me, I think, Ev, what you're saying, like the self-care piece, the CIT, is that what you're talking about? Yeah. Looking after myself, and if I'm going to respond calmly and model that, I have to be in a good place myself. And how do I do that? And part of that is that self-care piece. And when I think about the self-care piece, I think a lot of people think, let's go, which I do. I'm really into the physical self-care kind of stuff. Let's go for a run. Let's lift weights, do something like that. But it's not just that shift in those behaviors, like where I'm going to take time for myself, but thinking about a shift in our attitudes and our mindsets as well, and looking after those pieces too. And I think that's an important thing for moving forward and helping and supporting people, and being open to people's different experiences. That is that looking after yourself.
So getting back to the normal, right? There are the new normal really is talking about us sort of just moving along that continuum, right? Where like you said, things have shifted. There's been a shift, and therefore being open to recognize that that shift has happened. And then being able to sort of respond to it appropriately, right?
Yeah.
And we don't even know, like when we talk about, you know, getting back to normal, I don't even know what that is anymore. I think to even gauge what normal, or like you said, a new normal, I think is going to be ongoing. And I think it's going to be something as a world we're going to be watching and figuring out. And there is going to be some maybe significant changes that will be longer term, and then maybe things will somewhat resemble more familiar things. But I think what's unsettling for a lot of the people that I have had opportunity to talk to is just the unpredictability of when and what is it going to look like? When is it going to happen? And I mean, people I think are anxious to get back to doing some familiar things, but then yet also very fearful or hesitant about getting back to familiar things. And some things may never look completely familiar again. I don't know. Will grocery shopping always kind of look the way it looks now? Are there some, you know, really important things that we maybe need to be aware of or should have been aware of in a society all along? Like even just wiping off the handles of your grocery cart, like just, I don't know. Like, I think it's going to be just very interesting to sort of see what's in store for us all.
And I still really, and again, this is just how I process this, you know, you guys, is I really do equate this to developing a chronic illness, and how each member, whoever you're connected with, reacts, the long-term effects of that. Nothing will ever be the same in your world once somebody in your family or your immediate circle develops a chronic illness, right? There's no predictability for the most part. You can't map it out. And we never know how people are going to react. And so I think we just have to be open, you know, to that unpredictability, you know, and be able to respond, and to make sure, again, like I said, that we're keeping ourselves in check. And I just want to go back to something you were saying as well, Brent, about, you know, like, how do we do this? How do we adapt just beyond, say, you know, we're doing more physically, you know, like incorporating runs or incorporating bike rides or whatever. Like, what are some other things, I guess, that would be good examples of how we can help to settle, you know, ourselves, that we may bring on as our new norm, right? I don't know if you were thinking of anything, like some examples, Brent. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I guess I am.
Yeah. Well, like I gravitate to those physical pieces. That's my kind of thing, but I've been trying to open up to some other things, like doing things like meditations and yoga, just to calm the mind and body. When I know I might be getting anxious, or I'm dealing with people that are struggling, right? And so those are some other things that I guess I've sort of branched out into doing. There's lots of other different kinds of things that a person can do, but that's what I'm finding helpful for me.
Well, you know that that nervousness and all that stuff is really a neurological response, right? That idea of stress and anxiety is really held within our bodies. And I find that, you know, in our working with people and being around people so much, there is an exchange of energy, right? Both positive and negative. And I'm not able to do that anymore. And so I'm holding more and more of that within my body. And I agree that I need to find more positive ways to release that, because my normal way of releasing it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right, Brent. Like typically I'm more into the physical stuff too, right? In terms of the release, and that's what I go to. And I really have to push myself, like you, to look at other ways of expending some of that additional whatever I'm feeling in my body, right? Like,
yeah,
how do I allow myself to contemplate different things?
yeah. And like Jason says, the 10K run becomes a 20K run, becomes a 30K run, because right?
Yeah.
And it's not working, and you just keep upping it. So it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the challenge of finding what works for you as an individual, and then being able to, I guess, connect with that, whether it's a physical activity or whether it's, you know, a grounding visualization, whether it's an art activity, whether it's whatever you need to do to be able to bring you to the here and now. And I think that's the most important thing, because it's unpredictable, because we don't know what's next. It's, I think, really focusing in on what's happening in the moment. And if we can get from moment to moment, then that's more manageable than trying to predict what's ahead. Because then that makes me feel, I think, more overwhelmed, especially if I feel the need to want to have control or planning or whatever. If I can stay in the moment, then I can feel like I'm managing.
Yeah. Well, that's
this. I don't know if we'll have time to talk about it, but maybe we'll have to come back and talk about it some more. But for me, this fits into this idea we talked a little bit before we started about expectations, right? So in my mind, this is about my expectations. As I move to this next stage, I have certain expectations of what I want to be doing. But understanding what those expectations are and if they're realistic or not, or even if they're important, I think is where I'm at. So, example, you know, we were talking earlier about what we do when we get up in the morning. Well, you know what? I lie in bed for a little bit longer, and I get up and I have my coffee, and you know, I think a little bit about what I'm doing for my day, but not really. I'm kind of a real bum in the first couple hours of morning. Where you guys are telling me you're up and ready and at it and done everything by the time I get out of bed.
Well, again, I think it's you know, you have to be able to say it's okay to do and be what you need, right? And be who you are, and don't place the expectations of others, or because I think right now we're so inundated with the technology, and you can see people posting that they're doing 65 different things, and you can start to feel almost really like not good about yourself. And so I think we really have to be kind and gentle and aware of what we feel and what we need. That's going to be different from somebody else, and that there isn't an expectation that we all have to model the same kind of schedule or the same, you know, it's got to work for you. It's got to work for your family. It's got to work for what you need and where you're at that moment. And we need to be accepting of that, I think, and patient.
Yeah, and not critical. And you know what, that's one thing through this, you know, you guys, at least in my world, I have not felt like criticism, or even the families I'm talking to. I think they feel pretty supported, and that they're being allowed to do what they need to do. And that might be different in different pockets, but I think that's the thing, is that openness, you know. Jason, I don't know how long you want to go, or if you want to do this another time, or.
Yeah, we'll have to come back sometime, but we can wrap up this little piece here. And
okay.
I think just be kind to yourself, though. It's not even that we're criticizing each other. I think we're our biggest critics of ourselves.
Yeah.
I think it's like letting go of that and being able to say, you know what, I am enough. This is enough. This is what I can handle, and that's okay. And just allow yourself to be okay with that.
Yeah.
So it's okay if I don't do my laundry today?
It's okay if you don't do your laundry.
It's okay, Jason.
Or you
Only
don't
you can.
your hair.
Only you can answer that.
In terms of my role in supporting people in my job, I don't know if this is bad or not, but I'm trying not to have any expectations. I'm trying to be open and say, how can I be helpful?
But I like that you're basically responding in the moment, right? And I think if we can all respond in the moment and not have an agenda, not have expectations of how things should go, that's actually really authentic. Like, good for you. You're just like where you're at, where people are at in that moment, and you're responding appropriately. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, guys, we're gonna have you back again. So thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks
for
for
having us.
being with us.
See you.
Yeah. Have a good